I know we've been doing a lot on social media. Our ads are circulating on Facebook nonstop, and I hope you guys aren't tired of us just yet. At this point, we want to do something that's a little bit more interactive, a little bit more fun, and it just gives a little light into the industry that we all love. So, for the last, I would probably say, 200 years, life insurance has been a part of the American culture. It has been a part of the financial services culture, and it's been something that has built empires and created families that have lasted the generations. So, I mean, here at Aquarian Associates LLC, myself, Roland Jr., and Mike Getch run the GA division. And that consists of life, disability, long term care, annuities, products that a lot of people overlook, but some of the most powerful, most life changing products available. So, for this new series, this podcast that we're doing, over the next 15 weeks, we're going to be highlighting people who have found success in this amazing industry. And I am very excited to welcome our first guest of this podcast, Mr. Rick from Ohio National. He is the regional vice president of Ohio National, and he runs pretty much all the contracting in this area and adding new agents, products, the whole shebang. So, Rick, introduce yourself a little bit.
So, as you mentioned, regional vice president with Ohio National, and the region is quite large. It's Waco, College Station, around Houston and Victoria, and all South Texas. So I've got Austin, Del Rio, Laredo, Brownsville, McAllen area, but I love it. I love having quite a big region, and I love what I do. I mean, it's easy when you go to work every day and love what you do. I watched this weekend, happens to be a client of ours, but
Shameless plug.
You might take that out. But anyways, she talked about never meeting somebody in her life that was happy that was miserable at the job that they did. So they couldn't kind of have both sides of it. So I absolutely love what I do. You mentioned life insurance disability. I'm a fully licensed financial advisor, 7 and 66, and working with 400 advisors every day to help their clients and help everyone as well.
That's amazing. That really is amazing. For us here, we've developed an interesting culture at Aquarian Associates to where we develop experts in every single one of our 19 divisions. So it's just such a difficult thing to recruit for these divisions. I mean, I know you know that you've had trouble. Everyone does. Everyone has had some type of horror story recruiting where they could not even have a single interview in a day, and they had 15 scheduled the day before. Or every single agent that came didn't want to do it. Everyone has had stories like that, and I just kind of want to touch on what Mike and I have gone through, and then what you see in that. Where do you see the future of recruiting going for something that people think is going to be more or less obsolete in the next 20 years?
So it's odd you bring that up. I was just on a call with one of the leaders of my company as well, kind of the evolution of when we get out of this, this era that we're in as far as coronavirus, what's recruiting going to look like? And so he was saying that my counterparts are struggling to figure what that's going to look like. They're used to getting out in the field and seeing people every day, and as you mentioned, some might not actually show. I told him this: I get excited about things like that. I really do. I'm looking for new nooks and crannies to find individuals. So I told him I was on Indeed a couple weeks ago, looking at who was hiring, kind of like you all as well, and who was in my region hiring either independent or career agents, and then that's where I was going to end up, finding individuals. And my counterparts hadn't even thought about going that direction. But that might work one week, might not work the next. But I enjoy, getting out and kind of figuring the uniqueness of the recruiting. At least of my 30 counterparts at home office, I think I've done really, really well in this 10-week confinement period and brought on about 13 new agents. And virtually, I enjoy it. I love getting in front of people, but I also enjoy being able to target a lot of demographics while I'm not actually traveling. So as long as you make it fun, if you guys can have a good time of it, I think that's great. Last thing I'll say is, in my personal advising of clients, I don't mind when things don't work. Meaning if I show a client a profile or a solution and they say, I hate that, that's kind of like a day that nobody shows up for my recruiting. And so I would say to that client, I said, you know what, that's great. And they'll say, that's great. I just said I hated that. I said, that's good. Now we can find out what you actually do like now that you know. So a day that didn't work out, what was that reason? Why did nobody show up for me? Was it the weather or was it me? And then just getting better at what I do. So I actually don't mind things like that. And so again, you got to find it fun. And if you continue to do that, but know that you can't go back to the same hole all the time. Every week is an evolution. So I'm enjoying it. I really am.
No, that's great.
Hey, Rick, in dealing just specifically in your world with this pandemic has changed kind of how we do business a little bit. What's one of the major changes you've seen just recently of anything from even underwriting or just how we conduct our daily business that you've seen has changed? And do you see it maybe going back to what it was before?
The biggest is underwriting. I mean, completely. And for good and bad. I mean, I've had success recruiting agents that other carriers are looking away from business. They don't want anyone 60 or older, things like that. Underwriting is the biggest situation that we're going through. But I also feel like if it's a time for us to be unique and find, back to, in a way, Kobe Bryant, he said, find opportunity in adversity. And I love that. I love, hey, this is an adverse opportunity. Let's find opportunity in it. So did the underwriting, the marketing, what we do, how we earn an income may change. And we have to evolve as advisors to where we're going to find business to supplement our personal income. And so maybe we'll get to that later, but it's about who's your market. When I was younger as an advisor, 25 years old, I realized pretty quickly that if I had a bunch of 25-year-old clients, my income was gonna be lower. If I had 50 and older clients, just for the sake of age, life insurance, so forth, income was gonna be much higher. That's the mindset. So if all of a sudden, older clients, obviously, underwriting becoming more stringent and maybe just denied, period. They don't want applications over that age. Where am I gonna find and help my agents find their business? And let's get on top of it. Let's not wait. Let's get on top of it. I do feel like potentially this could come back November and December. Yeah. I mean, think about it. We're business owners, all of us. If I opened a bakery for the sake of clients and my mother and older individuals, all of a sudden when sneezes and coughs and so forth comes around in November, businesses may just close down and say, we don't want to threaten our family with this business. So we can find opportunity now that come November and December, if we're sheltering in place again, where can we get that business? And so I see it as an opportunity to find a market that is employed and that we can bring people to. If we don't get out of this scenario, the people that are employed right now, and will always be, is where everyone's going to target that market for future business. And there's going to be new companies and everything, but targeting who's working, we need to do the same. So I don't know. I get excited about it.
It's exciting. It's a new time. Well, what I think is the most interesting about everything that you just said is all of this newness. And when I say newness, that's such a word that has so much vaguity and it doesn't really have any meaning. But whenever I think of it, I think of this new breed. Because you're right, what happens in 20 years, coronavirus just is the flu,
Sure.
People are saying, okay, yeah, it's corona. That could be a possibility. But what is also a possibility, and what I'm really interested in, is this is the first generation of producers that are growing up with changes, because these big boys haven't changed their programs for training in the last 100 years.
I agree.
And now, this is the first generation where they're actually making changes. They're actually taking into account all these new tech, social media, all of this digital marketing. And it's changing the way that we do business more for the better than for the worse. I think that the way that we've done business for the past has created somewhat of a negative connotation. And I think that's been the hardest thing to break through, especially going to speak about just protecting wealth, growing wealth, but using life insurance.
Correct.
Any type of ideas associated with any type of protective element in finance is always seen negatively. And I mean, that's the hardest stereotype to get out of, especially with our guys, with anyone in this industry, is going to be moving forward and combating these terms like, I can just do it online. They get the same rate. I got a better rate.
Yep.
And I mean, my biggest interest is And my biggest concern with the whole, you know, evolution of our industry is how do we, because even though I'm young, I was trained off of the same standard, you know, 4-prong meeting. That's what we do. Where do we draw the line that we should change it? Where we redevelop, redefine, and re-evolve what we do.
I'm going to ask a question. How do we make this better, right? Moving forward, we know the life insurance industry faces some stigmatisms out there, right? But how do we make this better? Like, if you had a magic wand, what would you change tomorrow?
You know, it wouldn't necessarily be change for me. It would be education, and what I mean by that is evolution of life insurance, universal life in the '80s, BUL in the early '90s.
There's always that hot product, man. There's
Exactly.
always that product,
It's
right?
something new.
You know, it's something new, and it's something we, as advisors, and we want to push. We want to show the clients. There's always that product,
My
right?
point to that is, and I'm just such a student of this business that I wanted to learn all the products in the '80s, and I feel like I really do know. But what I get to, as you mentioned, you know, how are we going to get out? Those are all consumer driven. Everything was consumer driven. Whole life was the shining star, and then all of a sudden people felt like, well, I'm only getting 5% dividends when at the bank I buy a home at 12%, 13% interest.
Yeah.
And so it was, I want that interest.
Yeah.
And companies decided we're going to come out with UL. As we got into the 90s, UL was earning less and less because many people don't realize that UL was based on the federal lending rate of 12 and 13%. So once they started coming down, consumers said, well, I don't want that, and I want what the market's returning, 23%, until, you know, the internet, you know, bubble and so forth. But to the point, I wouldn't necessarily say I have an idea and I'm going to do this. I want to see what consumers are asking for. What is consumers doing? I'm always on LIMRA, finding out what my advisors want.
Yeah.
And it tells me on LIMRA, at least from surveys and surveys and surveys and surveys. So I'd have a lot of fun with it, but I feel like the consumer's going to tell us what they want. I've got the best product. I've got the best life insurance.
They
but how
ultimately
do I
pay
get
the
it from-
premium, right?
Exactly.
So they're the ones that pay the premium. Inevitably, we're just trying to find the,
Yeah. What
the
do they
solution
want?
for them.
Exactly. And have fun with that.
Yeah.
And don't know this. What works today may not be the same exact thing that works in 2021. It's got to
Okay.
evolve. We've
It's
got
evolved.
yeah.
That's why we're always doing education, continuing education. We're always trying to stay on top of industry, of what's going on,
Exactly.
for sure.
Just have fun with it. But I wouldn't say I wouldn't come into a boardroom and say, guys, I know everything and I know how it's going to be. The consumer's going to tell us.
It has to. I mean,
Yeah.
demographics push products, and products push premium. That's
Mhm.
what it's going to be. My biggest thing has always been that this is such a, for lack of a better term, it's a beautiful way to make your living. This is the only industry that I know of that teaches you a extremely highly tuned skill set, and it allows you to help people while bettering yourself. It's the only one that I know of. Only one that I know of. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I've got a close second, and the reason is, and I only say real estate or real estate agents, and I only say that because there's no one individual that you can just mimic and recreate over and over and over in life insurance. I've
That's
seen
true.
so many producers that are so great, have completely different characteristics, completely different
And
personalities.
I've never heard of Granum.
Yeah, and same with real estate agents. Some can do well, so very similar. Meaning that's what I love about life insurance. It's not just the prototypical advisor.
Yeah.
Anyone can get in and do extremely well. And there's millions and millions of dollars to earn in this business. I'll say this lastly about a little niche on that. I talked to a college student the other day, 21, out in Los Angeles. I was asked, they told him to give me a call Rick, and talk about life insurance. So we had a conversation. He was selling door-to-door pesticides,
Wow.
but doing well, making $100,000. But in California, not very much. So he says, "Tell me about life insurance." And all I told him, I love this business, and we'll get into it later. But more importantly, I have an inventory. If I was selling the hottest television at Best Buy or the best Rolls Royce on the lot at the car dealership, I'm only as good as the inventory that I have. And maybe if it's not on the lot, I can't sell it. My income is shit. we have an unlimited inventory. When I imagine life insurance, it's an inventory that's endless, and because of that, I can make a lot of money. It's not going anywhere. It's a need that we'll always have. So again, that's the excitement. When he started thinking about that, it's like, wow, either way, we went in a little bit to who I marketed to. I said teachers, there's 327,000 teachers. Nurses, there's 218,000 nurses in Texas. I said, if I can't sell 300 policies at $300 a month, that's $1 million of income. And even if it took me 5 years, that's $200,000 of income. And so he hung up the phone, called his mom, and his mom called me back. I'm getting my life license next week. I mean, this is just a great business to be in. Either way. So that's my thought process.
And I love that we're addressing these things because most people that I've spoken to, and I've done a lot of recruiting at colleges, I've done a lot of recruiting, active recruiting within these niche industries, within Texas, within San Antonio, within other states. I always get the pushback, I don't want to ring doorbells. That has always been the pushback that I've received personally. I mean, you can interject with what you've seen, but I just want to make it very clear for anyone who listens to this or sees this, even if it's one person, and that one person takes one thing away, that the people who you help also help you, and the people who you care about, you want to help, and that is just the basis. No one in this industry anymore who does it out of the love of the game, and I say that very sparingly. They are not knocking on doors. They are not going to homes for the elderly and saying, look, I can get you in this at $800 a month. People who have developed a care, a love for their fellow man, have developed a skill set, they are going to people who know that they can help because they've developed an understanding with a set of products, a set of services that allow them to make a lifelong of above standard income.
Yep.
And that's the whole point of this podcast. That's the whole point of 15 weeks because Rick didn't start here. Rick didn't wake up in a suit. He didn't.
He might have been born in.
He might have been born. He puts his suits on the same way as everyone else. He jumps into them. No, he puts them on one leg at a time. And that's how he came up from doing something else. He did not come into this business successful. He built it up. And that's what these 15 weeks are for, to highlight successful people. Rick, I want to know your story. I want to just dive into it with me.
I'm happy to share it with you. Now, a lot of people wouldn't believe it. I'll keep it short, but I'll say this. When I started at Ameriprise Financial, and I'm going to go back to earlier in my career, but when I started at Ameriprise Financial, I got really successful. One of my first sales was $23,000, and we'll come back to that. But when, fortunately enough, was able to buy a Mercedes, and everybody told me, Rick, it looks like your mom probably bought you that vehicle. The family, you come from a wealthy background. So we'll kind of touch on. So I'll just share with you guys. Come from a very, very poor background. In Weslaco, which you're familiar with. I love Weslaco. I think it's one of the best cities to grow up with, college prep and so forth. But I tell people this about the home I grew up with and my mother at the time. My mother was a hoarder before hoarding was popular. I always say that because there was a no-show in hoarding, but that's what we lived in. Now, I will say, me, my brother, my mom, hopefully she doesn't mind me saying this, growing up, the house was so hoarded that we slept together on a full-size bed, the three of us, until my mom, me and my brother got too big that she had to sleep on the floor in the hallway. We had no ceiling. We had a roof, but because of the rain and flooding, we had no ceiling. We had rats living in our home. If we wanted hot water, my mom had to heat up hot water on the stove in order for us to actually shower with some warm water. And I don't say that for any reason. I wouldn't change a thing. I really wouldn't. But that was an upbringing. I had very wealthy friends. I was really good in sports. I was very competitive, all Valley, all district, things like that. But I envied, my friends that had, nice homes, things like that. I wanted to know where money came from. I was big. I told myself when I was a freshman in high school I wanted to be an accountant. no idea what an accountant really was, but that's what I told myself because somehow I thought that was
Yeah.
it. So went to college, UTSA. Well, I take that back. Actually played college football at Texas Lutheran for 2 years, and that got me out from that area. But then college being as expensive as it was, came to UTSA. And what happened was I was a Dean's List student, thankfully. I wasn't a very good high school student, but I got to college and they scared me. They said, you know, you're going to have to study an hour every day for every class. I said, holy crap. I don't even open a book now, but it scared me enough to say, okay, if I do that, and all of a sudden I made Dean's List and things like that. When I got to UTSA, they were handing out in an auditorium in my Finance 101 A's. Whoever got an A out of 120 students would come up and get that A. And he said to the group, I don't even remember the teacher, he said, if you got an A today, you should consider getting your Series 7 license. I had no idea what he was talking about, but that stuck with me forever. And that is the reason that I got into this business. And I'll tell you back to that story of selling that $23,000 case. So graduated, graduating in June, we'll say, and Ameriprise had already called me and said, hey, we want you to come aboard. I was at EB Games. I waited tables through college. I loved waiting tables. Honestly, if I could hire people, I would hire waiters all day. You have to put out fires. You know, people come in happy, sad, mad. You have to put up with them. Things are always done that aren't your fault. I mean, the kitchen mess, but it allows you to be able to talk to anybody. So it helped me so much doing that. Anyways, got in. I was working at EB Games before I got my licenses to become an advisor, making about $4.15 an hour. I say that because right before I joined Ameriprise fully, I was getting my license, they tell me at EB Games, this was downtown at the River Center Mall, the general manager's coming for a week, and he's going to evaluate everybody and give raises. And man, hey, if anyone's going to work hard, it's going to be me. And so I work hard for a week. He sits me down, he checks off every box and says, you did perfect, so I'm going to give you a raise. Honestly, I was thinking of a couple of dollars. So he says, Rick, great job. I'm going to give you a raise, 23 cents an hour. And I was blown away at 23 cents an hour, or it might have been even 12. But realizing that when I got into this business, and in a couple of months doing what I was trained to do and being very social, utilizing my waiting and my mathematics that I love, making a $23,000 sale, I realized I was never going to let somebody tell me what I was worth hourly ever again. And that's what drove me right into this business. Love math, law of averages, everything having to do with money. And so that's the reason that I got in here. And once I made that $23,000 check within a couple of months,
That was it? You were hooked?
there
You're
was
sold.
no way. I was
Never
ever
going
gonna
back,
do
never
anything else
going
again.
back.
Nope.
Never again. So either way, that's what drove me, and I wouldn't change a thing about anything that I've done. But I'm extremely competitive, but quietly competitive.
So let me ask you a little follow-up to that. And, everybody has an up and down story. What was one of the worst sales experiences you had, and what did you learn from it?
I don't know. The experience is always what I bring to it. I will say and this isn't a negative or positive, but I learned a lot. And so my first clients that I was at Ameriprise, so at Ameriprise Financial, you couldn't sell someone a term policy unless they bought an annual planning policy for $1,500. So if someone wanted a term policy, you couldn't do it. They had to buy a $1,500 policy. My first couple that committed to me calls me the very next week when we're doing the solutions that they're getting a divorce right off the bat. So, but I learned a lot from that. I truly did. Now, fast forward to a call that I got the other day that I'm going to share with you guys. So I have over 300 clients, and honestly, there's not any bad experiences. I've gone to Corpus Christi and sadly got a call Monday morning that the gentleman I saw Saturday passed away from a heart attack, things like that. So that's been the disappointment. But the experience with clients, those are family all over the place. I mean, I could call them tomorrow and they'd take me in and let me live there. But I had a client call me the other day and says, and I have to, the understanding of finances. So she calls me and says, Rick, you know what? I'm really upset. She sends me a text message on Mother's Day, long. and she is a mother, telling me about how her index annuity hadn't earned any money, and how upset she was with me because the CDs had been earning her more. Had she gone with a CD, how much she could have earned. And one thing I say is, you know what? It was Mother's Day, and for her to send that message tells me, that's important. It was on
She
her mind.
cares.
So
She
okay.
cares.
But the conversation I had to kind of, hey, listen, if we're going to consider what we could have done always, we're always going to be disappointed. Truly, if you're going to say, well, I could have gone with a CD over the last 2 years and made a lot more than that index annuity, but those are the unique situations, and I can only grow from them. But that's the downside conversations, if even that. I mean, that's the conversations of re-educating them on why we did what we did. And yet I had to tell her, and this is just me being never rude. I never raised my voice. She was so apologetic when we hung up because of my tone of conversation. But I did let her know that clients are calling, my 300 clients, the conversation is positive. It's, Rick, you saved me from losing anything, and next year I might earn 21%, 30%, because you took care of me. On the opposite end, I'm getting the call, and a couple of my advisors get that same call.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, why didn't I earn anything? And I said, this is the worst market that we've ever been in, and you're calling me upset that we didn't lose money.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
where did I gain? So
We're
it's
not
hard
down.
to please everybody,
Yeah.
and that's
hard.
the
You
only that's the only negative. But I still have fun with those conversations. I really do.
It's a
But that's-
learning experience. It really is, because every person's different. I mean, we have a joke around the office. We always say, I can guarantee that I can't guarantee anything.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I mean, that's the running joke,
Yeah.
because as fiduciaries, our responsibility is to take care of our clients, because like you said, clients are family.
Mhm.
There's nothing that I take more care in. More of my day-to-day is managerial. But I really do. I loved getting out, going to enrollments, probably seeing. At one time, I was at a city. We do public sector work, and I probably saw 150 people in one day. All talk to them about life insurance. Talk to every single one of them about life insurance. But I wanted to make sure, even if they didn't spend a dime, I wanted to make sure they knew for a fact what they could be getting with life insurance. And I can tell you, and I'll share this with both of you, I can tell you for a fact, 20 of those people have thought about it since that day, a year ago, and they have called me since wanting to get life insurance. Because even if you do not think people are listening, you think people don't care, they hear it when they know that you care. Because it doesn't matter if a client comes to me and they want to buy a $10,000 policy or a $10 million policy. I will still take 2 hours with them. I will still run multiple illustrations. I will still go through every single thing that I can do to make sure that every question is answered. Everything they have is taken care of. Because, I mean, that's just our responsibility. And I know that you carry the same standard. And it's great to see that the fiduciary responsibility has not been let go. Because so many people have just, they've forgotten about it.
I've been messing with our advisor, our investment arm of this company.
Sure.
Where in your planning software was this pandemic, right? It doesn't show up. Everything we planned a year ago, so things change. Things always change. They need the protection aspect. They need people to listen to them. They need people to understand. So, I mean, we play just as important role.
If you're going to make money,
In.
at least protect it.
Yeah.
That's the thing. And that's what everyone forgets. Everyone wants to grow. Everyone wants to do that. And I love that part of the business. I really do. Because finance, it was built on people who had bigger dreams. The first people who started this product, well, I mean, insurance has been traced back to the Mesopotamian era. Because, I mean, easily they would insure. They didn't call it insurance, but on a piece of tablet, Dead Sea Scrolls, you see things just like, he has a boat. He gave me 25 shekels.
Yep.
His boat is safe.
You're absolutely right. Kings, yeah.
The concept is a beautiful concept, and people have noticed that it's necessary for so long. I mean, now that we are 3 people in this industry that are trying, we're going to set the tone for the next generation.
I agree.
What we do now and what we do today with the tools that we have, with the reach that we have, will set the tone and will set what the next group of agents 50 years from now are learning.
Yep.
So, I mean, I want to ask, what's going to be the biggest piece of advice you have? I mean, taking everything into account, taking in the rise of these big VC-funded insurance companies based off of a computer, that shoot out a quote, they run it through every carrier, they run it through everybody, and you can get the same covers that you can get from us within, I would say, the same amount of time. Where do you see this culmination of tech and personality merging? Do you see it diverging? Where's the biggest thing?
I think it's going to be merging, but never discounting. I mean, you could have all the technology in the world. Someone could have every single piece of technology and still not make a sale. So it's still game planning. It's still preparation. A couple of things that I talk about is always preparing for success and expecting success. So, I'm big in, I played college football, so sports is huge for me. And what I mean is just learning off of that. So you see a head coach on a football team, and he's got a page that has a spreadsheet, and it says 3rd and 3, 4th and 1, and he's got his list there. But it's because they prepared all for it. So you can have everything, but it's preparing for success and expecting success. Two things I share with you. So I've got these boxes with items, and I only say that because I tell my agents, if I'm selling a client, I'm still going to have a box like this for my client. But if I have 20 of them against the wall, prepared already, I'm going to find 20 clients. I'm going to find 20 clients. Now, preparing for success, this is my preparation of success. But if I talk about expecting success, it's also to this point. So if I talk to 4, I know I've got 4 appointments
Gave us a
next
very
week.
nice goodie bag, by the way.
Yeah.
This was not pre-planned. Rick did this. He just showed up with it. He brought 13 more. No, I'm kidding about that.
Oh, I've got so many at home. But yeah, it's preparing for success, being unique about it, but then expecting success. What I mean is if I've got 4 clients I'm meeting with next week to sell, hopefully first time meeting, I'll be honest with you guys. I'm preparing 4 apps already with their name, with their city, with their info. Because if they sit down and say, you know what, I like this, when are we going to get together and maybe do the app? I mean, it's 87% complete. It's ready to go. I prepared it for you. They're not going to walk out the door. 3 out of those 4 that see you next week are going to buy type of scenario. So I'm always preparing for success and expecting success. And I think that evolves itself. So technology plus you. I mean, people buy from you.
Yeah.
They're going to give you a check. They're going to give it to Mike. They're going to give it to you. They're going to give it to you. They're not just going to buy from anybody. It's the person ultimately. So technology is great. Have the game plan.
This will still be a people
And
business.
That's what I
in the
wanted to
future.
talk about because I get a lot of questions from younger people. Not that I'm not young, but younger people. They really like to push this direct sales approach. From carrier to customer. That has always been something that people are very interested in. Esurance really paved the way for that one. May have to bleep their name. I'm not sure about that. I think it's fair use.
Possibly.
I don't know. Maybe. But companies have been selling straight to the consumer for a long time. But just to put it on the record, what you get with us, what you get with people like Rick, is a breadth of knowledge spanning 200 years. And I say that because Rick was not the first person to do this. I am not the first person to do this. Mike is not the first person to do this. And we are not the last. We come from a long line of people who have been dedicated to helping others and to understanding that finances can be more than just numbers on paper, but they can be a living part of your everyday life. So,
to your point real quick, when I started at Ameriprise, and this was 15 years ago. So we'll say 2005. I know I graduated at that time. So, but my spiel to my clients or prospects, because USAA is out there, at least in our region.
Yeah.
So people would come in and say, well, what about USAA? And again, that's more virtual. So my argument, at least at the time, and this was nothing negative, I would say, listen, when you call USAA, you're going to call an 800 number. You're going to a couple of prompts, 1 for English, 2 for Spanish. And by the time you get someone on that call and have a question pertaining to your personal situation, They have no idea what that is. They might say, yeah, you can do this or that. When you call me, I know your situation. You can tell me what it is, and I can give you several solutions knowing what that is. So that was always my overcome is USAA, one for English, two for Spanish, and getting someone on the line that has no idea what your true situations are, what your actual goals are going to be. I'm here to do that. And the last thing, when I was at MetLife, I knew every product, but right now I have old clients calling MetLife desks, the sales desk, and someone saying, well, you can do this and that. We know the products that we sold better than that person who's been there 1 month behind the desk. So again, that personal touch, someone's going to have a lot more success financially working with someone they know than calling a service desk, and that's what it's going to be in this business. So that's what I would say.
I appreciate you coming, Rick. I mean, always great to have, always great to talk to. Rick and I have been talking. I met Rick 3 years ago around.
Yep.
3 years ago, and we've been talking ever since. Went up to Ohio with Rick, visited Ohio National, very nice company, great people there, sweet people. I mean, in this industry, there's a lot of love and there's a lot of care that goes into it. So if anyone has any questions, we're going to have a number right here to call. Don't be afraid to call. If you have a question about insurance, about getting into this business, it's going to be my mobile number. I'm going to put Mike's mobile number, and also I'm going to put his address. But office, yeah. No, but I want you to feel, any viewer, if it has 1 view, 2 views, 0 views, feel comfortable to reach out, approach us, come visit us at the office, come talk to us about your situation, what you want to change, what you want to do, because I don't care if you're 97 years old or if you're just turned 18. If you have fire and desire and you want to change your situation and you want to create a career that will allow you to make income, be your own boss, create your own success, call me. I don't care what time it is at night. I don't care what time it is in the morning. I want to hear from people like that who are trying to better themselves. I appreciate everyone. And all the outreach that we have had on social media, almost 8,000 people reached in the last 2 weeks. It's amazing. We love every single one of you who are reaching out, who are commenting, who are liking, who are following, and to our new subscribers on our YouTube channel. Though it's fledgling, we appreciate you just as much. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Rick, and thank you, Mike. And we'll see you next week with Life Guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.